They left my name off the welcome board, called my chair at the reunion extra, and toasted my brother as the heart of the family, while I stood 3 feet away, invisible. Hi, I'm Claire. I used to be the dependable one, the fixer, the silent supporter. Until one afternoon, I taped a handwritten note to the family cooler and walked away without saying goodbye. What did that note say? And why did it shake the whole family to their core? Before we dive into the story, if you're enjoying these meaningful stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more. Now let's start the story together. I parked under the maple tree near the edge of the lot, same spot I'd chosen 3 reunions in a row. The air had that sticky summer scent, half sunscreen, half charcoal smoke. Laughter drifted through the trees from the lodge lawn, the kind of laughter that wraps around you when you belong. I smoothed the front of my cotton dress, grabbed the folding chairs from the trunk, and made my way up the hill. The welcome board stood right where it always did, chalk letters curling in the heat. Welcome, Donnelly family. Beneath it, a list of names in bright colors. I scanned the board once, then again. No Claire. There was Marjorie, my mother, listed as matriarch and baker. Grant, of course, had a bold, glittery mention. Our rising star. Olivia's name came up twice, once as host and again under planning committee. I stood there a beat too long, trying to convince myself it was an oversight. But the truth clung to me like the humidity. It wasn't. Claire's always dependable, Mom used to say. I suppose dependable doesn't need acknowledgement. It just shows up, carries the load, and stays quiet about it. I set the chairs beside the picnic tables. No one noticed. Olivia was arranging cupcakes in star-shaped liners. Grant stood in a circle of uncles, already mid-story about his app's latest angel round. Mom sat by the cooler, smiling at something he said. She'd opened a bottle of white wine, same label I gave her for Mother's Day 2 years ago. They poured it freely. No one mentioned me. At lunch, Olivia tapped a spoon to a mason jar and called for attention. Let's toast the dreamers and doers, she chirped, eyes fixed on Grant. Resilience like his moves families forward. Polite claps followed. Then she turned to me, her smile practiced. And Claire, always quietly helpful. We see you. Except they didn't. Not really. I walked toward the seating area, hoping for a name card, a spot that said I mattered. Near the kids' table, next to the buffet line, I spotted a folded tag. In thin blue ink, it read, Extra. Someone had scribbled it last minute just in case. My smile didn't waver. That's the part I'd perfected. I sat down quietly. Behind me, a cousin laughed too loud. Across the lawn, Grant took a bow. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, tapped out a title, What I Should Have Said. And then I just sat there, with my name missing from the board, my wine unopened, and the word extra whispering louder than anything anyone had said all day. The apartment was still warm when I got home. I kicked off my sandals and stood for a second in the entryway, letting the silence catch up. No messages from Mom, no apologies, just silence. I didn't bother turning on the TV. I poured a glass of water, sat at the small dining table that doubled as my workspace, and opened my laptop. There, buried beneath project folders and marketing decks, was a file I hadn't touched in months. Donnelly Support Tracker.xls. I hadn't meant to keep track. Not really. But when the little favors turned into regular transfers, then turned into full payments, something in me needed a record. Not for revenge, just to prove I wasn't imagining the weight of it all. The spreadsheet opened with a soft click. Row after row, organized by year and recipient. Color-coded tabs for Mom, Grant, even Olivia once. I scrolled through. July 2020. Emergency room copay for Grant, $660. I remembered the call. Olivia had said, "Remember the July 4th trip?" Like it was a shared memory. I nodded then, but in truth, I remembered the call at 2 a.m. Grant groaning in the background, and me giving my card number to a billing clerk I never met. December 2021. Christmas dinner catering. $1,185.40. That was the year Grant's business rebranded, and Mom said it would lift his spirits if we made it special. March 2019. Mortgage buffer, $800. Just a buffer, she said. Just one time. I clicked over to the tab labeled Mom. Her name sat above columns filled with gas bills, grocery runs, one-off Amazon purchases that mysteriously got charged to my card. I'd let it happen because, well, it's Mom. And I thought maybe doing all this kept us closer, somehow. But if that were true, why did my name never make it to the welcome board? A folder on my desktop caught my eye. Keepsakes. Inside, I opened a scanned image, a birthday card from Olivia. The front had sunflowers, my favorite. Inside, a note in handwriting too neat to be spontaneous. To the dependable one. No signature. It wasn't even dated. I leaned back in my chair, let the silence settle into the corners of the room. My eyes drifted to the bookshelf, one framed photo of Dad and me from the summer before he passed. Just us, on a canoe. Everything else was digital, disposable. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, the formula cell calculated totals. $82,410.37. 5 years. No interest. No thank you notes. A ping broke the stillness. My phone lit up with a text from Renee. You ever gonna do Paris with me or still bailing for family stuff? I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I scrolled up to the newest tab, July 2023 Reunion, and typed in one more line. Catering, $930. Then I closed the file, not because I was done tracking, but because I was finally seeing the pattern. At work, I moved through the day like a shadow walking behind my own body. Emails sent, decks reviewed, calendar checked and color-coded. No one at the office noticed anything different. Why would they? I still smiled at the right times, still nodded in meetings, still offered to reschedule when someone missed a call. Dependable, remember? But inside, something had shifted. During lunch, I sat in the break room with a cup of reheated soup. My phone buzzed across the table. Voicemail from Mom. I knew the tone before I even hit play. Her voice had that worn-through edge, like she was pretending to be calm but didn't believe it herself. Hi, honey. The mortgage is due this Friday. Just let me know once you've covered it, okay? No, please. No checking if I could. Just the assumption. As if my support were as automatic as the draft from my account. A minute later, another buzz. Text from Grant. Can I borrow $600? I'll explain later. No punctuation, no context. Just more taking. I stared at the phone for a long second, then locked the screen. My soup had gone cold. That evening, back in my apartment, I dropped my keys into the dish and turned on the desk lamp. A soft glow spread across the room. There was only one photo on the wall, me and Dad on the canoe that summer. He was mid-laugh. I was squinting into the sun. That moment felt like another lifetime. I sat down and reached for my laptop. Next to it lay his old pen, black lacquer with a chipped silver clip. He used to say, "Track what matters, not just what they owe, but what you've lost giving it." I opened my banking app. The shared mortgage account was the second one down, tucked between utilities and savings. I tapped into the details, heart steady. Autopay. On draft date. 15th. From Claire Donnelly. Primary. I hovered over the switch. My thumb felt heavier than it should have. Years of habit sat inside that single gesture. Every missed weekend, every canceled trip, every silent expectation I had met without a word. Then I tapped it. Autopay off. A green check mark blinked on screen. That was it. No prompt. No, are you sure? Just done. I didn't move for a long time. The apartment felt impossibly still. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was something close. The kind of stillness that follows a deep breath, not yet released. The phone rang again. I glanced down. Uncle Brian. I picked up. "You don't owe them more," he said simply, his voice low and steady. "Just because you were raised to." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I know," I said. We didn't talk long. We didn't need to. After we hung up, I reached for the sticky notepad on my desk, wrote 5 words in my cleanest handwriting. "Handle it yourselves this time." I folded it once, tucked it into my purse like a small declaration. One no one had heard yet, but one I'd already decided to believe. I had told myself I would leave quietly, but I didn't know how loud silence could get until that final afternoon. The sky had that late summer haze, the kind that made everything look softer, even when the air felt heavy. Tables were being cleared. Stacks of paper plates wilted under half-eaten burgers and watermelon rinds. The laughter was still going, but it had lost its early shine. Most people were thinking about the drive home. I was still helping. Of course I was. Folding chairs, trash bags, someone's forgotten casserole dish. I moved through it all like part of the scenery. No one looked at me directly. No one said thanks. It wasn't coldness. It was just nothing. A practiced neglect. Mom sat near the folding tables talking with Olivia, who was fanning herself with a plastic plate. Grant leaned against the cooler, phone in one hand, keys to his new truck dangling from the other. He'd earned that truck after his latest round of angel investors. Mom's words, not mine. I'd heard the story twice that weekend. Never mind that part of his down payment had come from a short-term loan I'd never seen returned. Olivia clinked her mason jar again. "One last toast," she said, standing up as if this were a wedding. "To Grant, truly the heart of the Donnellys. You carry us all, and we're so lucky to follow your vision." Everyone raised their drinks. I didn't. I was standing near the buffet, pretending to sort utensils. A bottle of that same white wine sat open again, half empty. No one offered me a glass. That's when I knew I wouldn't wait for a better moment. This was the moment. I pulled the sticky note from my purse, smoothed the corners with my thumb, and walked over to the cooler. It was one of those big blue ones, faded, scratched, from years of use. I peeled the backing from the note and pressed it firmly to the lid. Then I turned and walked away. No goodbyes, no hugs, just my sandals brushing gravel as I made my way to the car. I slid into the driver's seat and closed the door gently. The buzz of the reunion faded behind the windshield. I buckled in, turned the key, and let the engine hum to life. My phone lit up in the cup holder. 2 new notifications. I didn't check them. Back near the buffet, I imagined the moment. Olivia reaching for something cold, flipping the lid open, her manicured hand pausing as she spotted the yellow square. Maybe she thought it was directions or a grocery list. Maybe she read it out loud, voice light and amused, but the words weren't hers. "You never noticed I was here? You won't notice I'm gone until it costs you something." It wasn't bitter. It wasn't cruel. It was true. I didn't need a scene. I didn't need them to cry or chase after me. I just needed them to feel, even for a second, what it's like to expect someone to be there and find empty space instead. As I pulled out of the lot, the wind picked up and scattered a few napkins across the grass. Kids were still playing by the swing set. Uncle Brian stood near the tree line watching me go. He didn't wave, but he didn't look away either. Dad once told me, "If they ignore your words, let your silence speak louder." I'd spent years waiting to be seen. Today, I finally walked away to make it happen. The morning light crept in slowly, filtered through the white curtains I hadn't changed in 5 years. I made coffee without thinking. 2 scoops, splash of oat milk, no sugar, and sat down at the kitchen table, barefoot, still in my old college t-shirt. My phone lay face down beside the mug, buzzing every few minutes like it had something urgent to say. I finally turned it over. 28 missed calls. The first voicemail was from Mom. Her voice sounded tight, like she'd rehearsed it in the car. "You embarrassed us, Claire. I hope you're happy. People were asking questions. That's not how we handle things in this family." I didn't hit delete. Not yet. The second came from Grant. No hello, no build-up. What's wrong with you? You just leave? You could have talked to someone. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I deleted that one before it even ended. The third was a text from Olivia. It was just one dinner. You're making it a whole thing. Just one dinner. Just one more year of being invisible. I kept going, message after message, each one pulsing with urgency, guilt, or disbelief. No one asked if I was okay. No one said they missed me. They just needed something to make it stop. The discomfort, the shift, the silence I'd finally weaponized by doing nothing at all. Then came the voicemail from Uncle Brian. "Claire," he said, voice quiet but steady. "Sometimes the ones who keep giving aren't strong. They're just tired. I hope you get some rest now." I sat still after that, let the silence come back in, not as an absence, but as a guest I was finally ready to welcome. Later that afternoon, I took my laptop to the cafe around the corner. It was the same place I used to work on freelance projects after hours, quiet, tucked between a tailor shop and a florist, always smelling faintly of vanilla and espresso beans. I chose the seat by the window, the one with the crooked outlet that only worked if you jiggled the charger just right. Opened a blank document and titled it, "What I Owe Myself." I stared at the blinking cursor for a moment, then typed, "Freedom, sleep, boundaries, room to not be useful." My phone buzzed again. A text from Renee. "How's silence treating you?" I typed back, "Like peace." Then I opened another tab. Booked a one-way flight to Lisbon, February 3rd. No return date. The cafe filled with soft background noise, cups clinking, pages turning, someone typing faster than me. It all blended into something warm, steady, and just mine. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I owed myself a beginning. They used to call me the dependable one, the kind of person who remembered birthdays, sent thank you cards, picked up the pieces before anyone noticed they'd shattered. Lately, they've been calling me distant, cold even. I don't argue with them. I just call it free. Lisbon smelled like oranges and salt water that morning. I sat outside a cafe tucked between two bookstores facing a quiet street. My coffee arrived in a porcelain cup that felt like it belonged in someone's kitchen, not a business. No to-go lids, no rush. The check came on a tray, folded in half beneath a biscuit. It had my name written at the top, Claire Donnelly. The server had copied it from my card, and for a moment, I just looked at it. There was something strangely beautiful about seeing my name in someone else's handwriting. Centered, not forgotten. Not extra. I paid in cash and left a generous tip. No one expected it. That was the point. I pulled out my journal, the one I'd picked up my first day here, leather-bound, soft at the corners already. On the first page, I had written it like a title, What I Owe Myself. Now, a few pages in, it was part list, part letter to no one. I added a line, to walk without apology. My laptop hummed quietly as I opened an old document, an unfinished novel I hadn't touched since the year Grant borrowed money for something big. I used to call the protagonist Brave. Now, reading it back, I realized she was just tired of explaining her worth. I began a new scene. This time, the character didn't shout, didn't slam a door or drop a dramatic line. She just stood up, brushed off the dust, and walked away. Not in anger, but in readiness. Not because she didn't care, but because she finally did. My phone buzzed once. Renee. They still reaching out? I typed back, I'm not checking. Across the plaza, a couple argued gently in Portuguese. A child laughed nearby, chasing pigeons. None of it required me to fix anything. None of it asked for my attention. I watched, finished my coffee, and let the sunlight settle across my hands. For the first time in years, I wasn't solving anyone's crisis. I wasn't saving receipts or keeping tabs or waiting for an apology. I was just here. And that was enough. Some people lose their families when they walk away. I lost mine the day they stopped seeing me. All I did was finally agree. The cursor blinked on a blank page. I smiled, closed the laptop, and ordered another coffee. I used to believe that love meant staying, even when it hurt. But sometimes, the kindest thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to finally let go. Families don't always see the quiet ones, not until the quiet becomes absence. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Caring should never come at the cost of disappearing. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're how we begin to choose ourselves, gently. If this story reminds you of someone, or maybe of yourself, I hope you take a moment to rest. And if you'd like, share your thoughts below. Sometimes all it takes is being heard.